Wow, what a game. Hell of a performance by both sides. First thing to mention, discipline on both sides was excellent. We didn't see any yellow cards, red cards. Tackling was superb. Yes, both sides made mistakes, but in terms of out of the way discipline that could be controlled, neither side gave away anything for it. Let's get into this. So New Zealand obviously win the game, and I don't think it was fraught from either side making no mistakes. I think both of these sides are trying to find their feet a little bit in terms of a bit of chemistry within each other. England are probably the team coming in with lower expectations but higher hopes. They've done well in the Six Nations. They've shown they can play an aggressive style of rugby like they did today. But there's just a couple of things that kept them from winning the game. Little mistakes like Ben Earl kind of running in forward in front of a player to get a penalty against him for crossing. Other mistakes in attack, a knock on here and there. And, you kind of forgive that for this summer tests. We're just looking to see England progress as an England fan. But that was really the difference. On the other side, New Zealand make similar mistakes, but just not to the same level. I think there's a level of comfort and security that New Zealand have. There's a lot of players that are still there from the World Cup, and now Damian McKenzie is getting his proper shot at 10. And speaking about him, Damian McKenzie for me is an excellent player, really, really good. But there's probably been a criticism of him at international level of maybe fading under the big lights. Not that happened today. Not that happened today. Did not make any sense, that sentence whatsoever. You know what I'm saying. He really thrived. Other than his goal kicking early in the game, he was excellent. I think his counter-attacking was great. His kicking was great. And he had a really, really great game. England, Joe Marler comes off. Finn Baxter, at the age of 22, gets his first cap coming on at 17 minutes. And, I guess as an England fan, you're worrying that he won't be able to keep up the pace, seeing as this is his first cap. But I thought he played really, really well. And the scrums and the lineouts, he did what was asked of him. And he was in the loose. He never got caught out. I did think my prediction came right a little bit. One, I predicted that New Zealand would win the game closely, that England would play well because they wanted to have a counter-attacking style play and that England could win the game. But I think ultimately there was one or too many box kicks that kind of got lost in the ether. But they really limited how much they did that. And I think that's what kept the score in the game as close as they did. Everything they did, for the vast majority, seemed like it came with a purpose. There wasn't like a box kick just to release pressure. There was a box kick that you would either be competing for or it would go out for touch, for territory. And their attack had a lot of purpose as well. The 20% that it didn't have purpose, what they were doing with the ball, that's where they got into trouble. That's when the turnovers happened. That's when penalties went against them, quite rightly so. And I think I was a little bit worried at the beginning of the game. Their set piece, they were getting dominated in the set piece. They were losing lineouts and they were losing scrums. And I made a tally throughout the game, and then towards probably about the 20-minute mark into the game, they really started just to win every single one of their own scrums and lineouts. They didn't lose one of their own scrums. They did lose some scrums to penalties when New Zealand had the ball, but they managed to kind of keep things going. New Zealand, on the other hand, surprisingly, on their set piece, they won 5 of their own scrums, got 3 penalties from them, but they actually lost 3 of their own scrums as well. Their lineouts, they lost 2 of them, which I think is uncharacteristic of New Zealand, out of 7 from my counting. So I think those are the mistakes that New Zealand will probably be looking at themselves and thinking we need to tidy those things up. I think they were mistakes that were avoidable for New Zealand for sure. And if they didn't make them, I think the score was probably going to be more like 26-15 rather than 16-15. And it makes for a really interesting second test. I can't see either team making too many changes in their squad. I think both starting teams earned their position on the pitch. Perenara, unfortunately, maybe looks like he's got an injury with maybe an ACL or something. He bent his knee in a very awkward way. And it's a shame because he was having a great game until that point. Finlay Christie comes in. He's okay. He's not that much of a difference maker compared to Perenara. But he did his duties, he did his kicking well and did his passing well. So he didn't do too badly. I just think the difference between these two teams is that New Zealand is a kind of a finished product and England are brimming with hope, brimming with an exciting philosophy of what they want to bring to rugby, brimming with such potential with young players like Chandler Cunningham-Smith, Finn Baxter, Marcus Smith. Oh, he's like 25, but he's now starting to come into his own. And, you know, Feyi-Waboso, another one. And they've got time. This whole thing with England is building towards the next World Cup. Probably the same for any international side right now. And I think the difference is that New Zealand are just more of a finished product. I think Razor, a great game for him to come in and take over ownership of the New Zealand team. He'll probably think it was a little bit too close for cool, and not that I am a coach or I'm anywhere near coaching, but if I was to guess at what he would do this week, it would be fundamentals, scrummaging practice, line-out practice, no knock-ons, no nothing, because if they didn't do that, I think they could have won by a larger margin. But I think the real take-home note, especially as an England fan, is there is hope for this team. By gum, they are bringing hope to the table for sure, and it'll be an interesting second test. Now, the second test comes round, and now that New Zealand have some homework on England, do they exploit that further? I think we already saw that New Zealand have tactics against what some of England like to do. That sentence didn't make any sense, but we're still rolling because we're not going to be able to edit this video. What I mean by that is that New Zealand themselves had a plan for the blitz defence. You could see that. They decided to drop attackers really deep and really wide to try and get around that blitz, and they trusted in the pace of their wingers to basically make up any disregard that they had in terms of giving themselves a higher percentage for game line success of being closer to the line, if that makes sense. So I'm going to kind of do it from here. So England's blitz defence comes in and inwards like this. New Zealand decided to have people even as far as back here so that they could hit a long ball and that they would trust that the player here would make it past the game line because they have the pace to do that. Other things I saw as well is that New Zealand had good defences for England first phase attack. We saw in the Six Nations, I did in particular, and also against Japan actually, that off of first phase ball, England have some really nifty moves. But New Zealand actually quelled them quite quickly. They had studied their opponent decently. They were in the right place to make tackles off of misdirection and other things off of scrums and lineouts. So now that New Zealand have more homework, I could see this going either way. I think New Zealand will probably win the second test, but I think, do New Zealand now have a larger scoreline because they know England better? Do England... Because I don't think England can do anything different other than reduce the mistakes. I think they played the game that they had to beat New Zealand with the team they had. But yeah, I just question if there's anything else that England can really change in their attacking approach to winning this game. And my answer right now is no. So I don't know. Maybe they clean up their attack in terms of no more knock-ons, no more penalties, and goal kicking as well is another issue. For both sides, but McKenzie fixed it in the second half. Do they maybe think about just putting Marcus Smith in front of a tee for 5 days a week? I don't know. Because some of those kicks were... I mean, I don't want to say they're easy. I couldn't kick for, to save my life. But for someone of that international level, you would think that they'd be able to make those kicks. So, take-home message. England, close, no cigar. But as a fan... I mean, it's everything that you wanted to see within a summer test, other than the win. But that would have been a bonus. I think it just showed great promise of what England are doing. And yeah, looking forward to the second test, for sure.